It's
Okay,
okay.
so today we are joined by Shari. Shari, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Shari Rash. I am the host of the Everyone's Talking Money podcast, which has a top 4 New York Times rated money podcast. But we're not just talking about like stocks and bonds and all of that. We're talking about the emotional side of money because often that is what's hard about money are the emotions that we place on it. So the stocks and the bonds and the buying and the selling and the IRAs and all of that, that's usually the easy stuff. The hard part is the emotion. So that's what we're tackling in my show. I put out 3 episodes a week, so lots of content, but that's an advisor as well, a financial advisor and a podcaster.
Yeah, I think that emotional side is really important. So I've got a couple of businesses, so I've done a lot on money mindset. I've tried anyway. I think it's an ongoing thing, I have to say. And what came up for me, and this is probably really common, this is probably what you see all the time. When I was asked, well, what comes up for you when we talk money? And the first thing that came out of my mouth was, oh, there's just never enough. And it's that scarcity mindset that you have to kind of get through in order to be successful in business.
Absolutely. It's never the work's never done when it comes to your money mindset. And I like the question. I appreciate that someone asked you that because if you're working with mindset, obviously that's a good question. If you're just working with an advisor, they're not going to ask you that question. But that stuff is what really inhibits people from succeeding financially or feeling confident when it comes to their money and their finances. Another question I like to ask to get to kind of the root of it is, what is your first money memory? So that goes back to likely childhood. And even if it's not exactly your first interaction with money, the first thing you think of tells you a lot about what your relationship with money is. So if you said, well, I just think that there's never enough, then by digging deeper, we can then get to why do you feel like there's never enough? And that may then lead to what I call money hoarding, where you just want to keep on getting more money in the bank, more money. And once I have X amount in the bank, then I can go on vacation, then I can buy a house and I can do all of these things. But when you get to that amount, it's like, well, really, I think I really need this much. I'll feel really comfortable with this much. And it never is enough. So we need to get to the root of, why do you feel like there's never
Yeah.
enough?
hmm That's really interesting. When you asked that question, what was your first interaction with money? And I really did think about what my interaction was. And I remember being not sure how old I was, maybe it's about 4, and being in the local shop and asking for a book that was on sale and being told, no, I can't afford, we haven't got enough money for that. So that's obviously where my there's never enough comes from. And then the second thing that came up was that I was often asked to go to the shop to buy things like, I don't know, stuff that would run out of.
Yeah, the we can't afford that. It's such a common statement that comes up, and the adult that's saying it doesn't mean harm by what they're saying. And whoever said that to you is probably just thinking, well, that's not in my budget this month, or no, we don't have the extra money for that, which isn't a bad thing. But a child doesn't understand that. They
No.
don't understand if the book was $3. They don't understand the difference between buying a book and like paying for your house, paying for your home, whether it's a rent or a mortgage or whatever. They don't get that. So it's like, oh, well, if we can't afford a book, what else can't we afford? And it becomes this much bigger thing. I have 4 children, 14, 11, and then 6-year-old twins. And just this morning, my 14-year-old informs me that she has now potentially destroyed her second iPhone by getting it wet. And
Goodness.
my 6-year-old girl says, you really need to stop getting her new phones. And I'm like, you're right. You're right. And because she's like, well, and how much do phones cost? Like $100? And I'm like, no, they're way more than that. And she's like, So like $80? Like she doesn't even know. I'm like, well, actually 80 is less than 100, but it's way more than that. So they don't even know. They just hear numbers, they hear things
Yeah.
and but they don't really know what it means. So by saying to a child, we can't afford that is an innocent statement. And you think you're kind of being maybe a little bit fiscally responsible by saying like, no, that's not in our budget, but just shifting that slightly of, we're not going to spend our money on that right now. Or if you really want that book, why don't you use your piggy bank money for that book and give the power to the child to decide, is it
Yeah.
worth it to them to spend their money on? So just a very small shift like that can be very can really impact the relationship with money that that person has forever.
Yeah. It reminds me as well of me saying that to my daughter. I can't even remember what it was about. We haven't got the money for that. And do you know what she said? Well, let's go to the cash machine.
Go get it. Let's go get it.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So
So
she
she,
literally
yeah,
said, you don't have the money, literally. So let's go get it. So then
yeah,
you have it,
yeah.
which
As
that's,
if just you can just go to the cash machine and it'll just give you as
that's
much
right.
as you want.
Yes. Yes. That's the problem with credit cards today. I mean, now we don't even use cash. So kids with the credit cards and the Apple Pay, money's not even real. It's not even
It's too easy to
tangible.
spend, isn't it?
It's so
Just
easy
a
to
tap.
spend. Hey, send me, I get the request. Can you send me $20 on my Apple Pay? And it's like, and usually, like, I'm doing so many things and I'm like, okay, fine, yeah. But I'm like, wait, I give you an allowance every week. Use your allowance. That's your spending money, not me just sending you Apple Pay. And then it forces them, and our allowance, unfortunately, is digital. I'm just sending it to their bank account so they're not feeling it. And often they forget that they have the allowance. But again, it's putting the ownership on them and the onus on them to allow them to make the decision. Well, do I really want to spend my allowance on this? No. Mom's money is easy to spend.
Yeah.
That's easy to spend, but by shifting the responsibility and the decision making to the child, that helps to empower them and allow them to become more comfortable with money.
Yeah. I think it's important to learn how to budget when you're young as well, which is not something that you learn in school, is it?
It's not. It's not. Thankfully, my children, our school district has financial literacy classes, which is awesome. So they are learning to budget. And that is so important because budgeting, you have to find the type of budget that works for your personality. Everyone has a different money personality. And like we said, it stems from the way you were raised, what you heard growing up about money. So everyone has a different personality. So budgeting doesn't work for everyone. In fact, budgeting really doesn't work for like 70% of Americans.
Okay. That's
Budgeting
interesting.
fails. Yeah. So for your listeners, if you've tried budgeting and you failed, you are definitely not alone. But you have to find the budgeting strategy that works for you. And budgeting doesn't work because in my opinion and in general it doesn't work because it makes us feel bad for spending money. It
Yeah.
kind of puts in our head like it's a bad thing, we shouldn't do it, we should be restrictive, when that's not life, that's not realistic. And then also budgeting tells us, okay, if I were to say to you, Kelly, how much do you spend, or what's your monthly expenses? You'd likely rattle off your housing expenses, your utilities, groceries, which will, generally undercut that, eating out, maybe a car payment, insurance, you name things like that, like basic
Mhm.
necessities,
Yeah.
right? And that's all we think of. But basic necessities are only a portion of where our money goes. It's then all that random stuff that comes up that like is really hard to account for, to budget for. And that's why budgeting fails, is because it doesn't account for the randomness that is life.
Yeah.
Um, Mentioning my four kids again, um, I just purchased their school pictures and their yearbooks, which The prices for that stuff is astronomical, like, it's crazy, and I know a
Yeah.
portion of it goes back to the school, so it's like, okay, that's good, but it's like, I just spent nearly, like, $350 on those things combined, where if someone were to say, like, "How much do you spend on that?" I would have no idea, and how do I account for that in a budget? It's
Yeah.
something that happens once a year. It's not even, is it September? Is it October? Is it November that happens? It's not a consistent month each time. And then it's once a year. But the once a year or the twice a year stuff, that's what actually gets people in trouble when it comes to their money,
Mhm.
because we can't account for it, because budgeting doesn't teach us how to account for that. So putting having a plan for those things is super important as well.
So what would you recommend? How would you so I suppose when I think of my own budgeting, I'll make a list of all my income and all my outgoings, and then I'll have some left over for like, and I'll assign everything that I need to pay, and then I'll have a chunk, right? That's what I've got to live on, like for whatever comes up. So for me that works, but I'm not always consistent in keeping track of what I'm spending and and what I've got coming in and out. It just kind of like life gets busy, and then it's boring, so you don't tend to look at it.
Yeah. Well, you said it works. So it's like, if it works,
It
then
works if I do
perfect.
it.
It works if you do it. Yeah. So if it works when you do it, perfect. Um that's great. That's all you can ask for, is that it
Uh-huh.
works. When you do it, if you do it, life gets busy, which I totally get that. What I recommend for that issue, that problem, is just to set like a money date, I call it.
Yeah.
A money date where you do it a consistent day each week and set a timer, 5 minutes. If you're doing it consistently each week, it shouldn't be that long of a process.
No.
So 5 minutes, 10 minutes when you're drinking your tea or coffee, or a glass of wine at night, but do it at a time that, like, there's minimal interruptions and you can just like bang it out, like get it done, and
Uh-huh.
go in and review everything and check the numbers, and are you on track? So that is one recommendation, is to set just some consistency, because if you don't check in, things just get out of control, like anything in life, right? Checking in on it,
Yeah.
it's out of control, and then the problems get bigger. The good thing with money is that money is very forgiving. So if you just say, it's been 6 months, I haven't checked in with you, money. Sorry, like, we're going to turn it around. Money's like, okay, cool. Like, let's do it. It's not like
Uh-huh.
money's out to get you. It's just there. It's up to you to do the right things with it. And as soon as you start doing the right things with it, momentum builds. So it's not as if you have to pay penance for mistakes forever. You can write this very quickly and easily, and start to enact those positive changes. For your listeners that don't have a budget, or don't, I don't like the word budget, but we as a financial services industry is yet to think of a word that's better and can catch on
Uh-huh.
better than budget. So I say budget, even though I don't like the word budget. I call it a spending strategy, because we have to spend money to function. So let's strategy around it. But that hasn't caught on enough yet. But I like the 50-30-20 rule. And if you Google this, it's out there. I did not think of this myself. And 50% of your take home income goes to needs. And that stuff, obviously, are basic expenses. But then this is where I change things up a little bit. Also, needs are things we need. And that's more than just housing and water and food and all of that. We may need Netflix. That may be a necessity. We may need to get our hair done every so often, get a haircut, right? If I don't get my haircut, I am not happy. That means everyone around me is not happy. That's a necessity. Whatever it is, I may need to pick up dinner from a restaurant once a week because on Wednesdays are really late nights for me, and I get home at 9 o'clock, and the last thing I'm doing at 9 o'clock is going to cook dinner, right? So whatever it is, like, be honest with yourself. What are your needs? And that should be about 50% of your take home income. If you live somewhere super expensive, so you have a high mortgage or rent, it may be more like 60%. That's fine. That's okay. We're not beating ourselves up over this. Then about 30% of your take home income should be wants. Wants are stuff that is really nice to have. If push came to shove, I could live without it. Like if we lost our job, if I had an emergency, whatever it is, wants go away. And why it's important to have some of the Netflix and the hair and the, what therapy, whatever it is in your needs, is because if your wants need to go away for a period of time, you still have some quality of life. You're not living off of nothing. You don't have, it's not as if your cable's away, your Netflix is away. So that's why we do need to bake some of our needs into the needs, the luxury needs, if you will. Allocating 30% to wants is pretty good. Like allocating 30% to stuff that just makes life better is really good. So even though we're putting like these guardrails on, and we're not completely restricting, we're putting these guardrails on, we're still not depriving ourselves. Because if we deprive ourselves, we create what I call the caged animal effect. If you have a dog, think of you put your puppy in its crate and it'll stay there and it'll whimper a little bit, but it'll stay there and it'll be okay. But as soon as you open that crate, it has the zoomies and it's running around and it's going crazy. That's budgeting. That's if you're super restrictive with budgeting, you're going to do what you need to do and it's going to work and you're not going to love it. The quality of life's not going to be great. But then if that cage opens, you're going crazy and you're making up for all the lost time and you're buying everything you didn't buy or spending everything or doing all the things you didn't do. And then it just goes away. All that good work you did or all that restriction you had on yourself, it all just goes away. So we don't want to create that. And that's what happens with budgeting. So by having 30% in wants is super important because it allows us to have quality of life. And also, if our needs are higher, if our need percentage is 60%, is 70%, then we have to take away from the wants. Because most importantly, we want to keep the wishes, which I call wishes, which is that remaining 20%. The wishes are saving, either to saving for the near future, if you're buying a house, buying a car, doing a remodel, vacation, whatever it is, but also debt reduction. So student loans, personal debt, whatever it is, that we need to have 20% going to that regularly. You need to make sure you're paying your future self. Because what happens a lot is like money comes in, we pay our bills, and then what's ever left over, that's what goes to saving. And if you do it that way, you're never going to save money because the money's always going to get spent.
Yeah. I think people struggle with saving, don't they? Because they don't put it in the budget.
They don't put it in. They don't put it in. And it's just like it's a future self line item. It's just I'm saving for my future self, or I'm saving for those random expenses that happen once a year, like the yearbook photo or the class photo. I know it happens once a year. I'm always surprised when it happens. It's not baked into my regular spending. Okay, I have the money saved for this, so now I'm going to pay it.
Yeah. Yeah. I definitely have the zoomies. Relate to that. Yeah. I think restriction has been quite a big part of life, actually, because it's been necessary.
Yeah. And we're also taught that. We're also taught, women in general, we're taught that we have to restrict. We're taught that our spending is frivolous, that we spend too much money. Where the fact of the matter is that one, in a household, women make most of the purchases for the household. Whether it's clothing, whether it's toilet paper, food, whatever, we make a lot of the day-to-day purchasing decisions. So yeah, are we swiping our credit card way more than our male counterparts? Absolutely. When men make purchasing decisions, they do a lot of research, but they're also buying the bigger stuff, the TV, or, like the bigger cost items. So they're putting more research in it. And in their head, they're like, I'm so good with money. I'm doing all this research. I'm doing the due diligence, where the women in my life, they just buy, 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 and not think anything of it. Well, yeah, we're buying, but we know what our household needs. We know the toilet paper, we know the milk, we know the snacks, we know all of this stuff because it's habit. We're used to buying it. We know spring comes, we need to refresh, everyone's wardrobe, buy a couple extra things. So we're doing it. So it looks thoughtless, but it's not thoughtless. It's habit. We already know it. It's ingrained in us. So when all the Amazon packages show up and there's, reels and videos and fun stuff of the wife going, oh, I bought too much stuff. Haha, let me hide it from my husband. That doesn't help the messaging, because it just feeds to the males going, yeah, look how terrible they are with money. When if you open up the Amazon packages, there's not that much fun stuff in there. It's in my house, it's laundry detergent and dishwasher detergent and soap and toothbrushes and all of that. And maybe there's a
Yeah.
shirt thrown in there, but it's not all of this frivolous expenses. So that's super important to understand, is that when we're getting advice, quote unquote, from the financial services industry, one, it's usually coming from males, because only about 16% of financial services is represented by women. So it's coming from men, and men and women speak a very different language when it comes to money as well.
You've just reminded me of something else that happened. It was really funny. A few years ago, me and my husband went to I think we went for a mortgage review because the fixed rate was coming up, and the male who was helping us with it wanted to know like what our expenses were, and my husband hasn't got any hair, and this mortgage advisor looked at him and said, oh, how much do you spend on haircuts? And then I think we all just burst out laughing. But then he didn't ask me, so that just didn't go in the... I was just like, oh, this is just not... Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that is so typical it is so typical. And I'm sorry that happened to you. And that has to be so frustrating, because if he just turned his attention to you, you probably would have been able to rattle off most of the home expenses, and he would have gotten a very good idea of the money going out versus your
Mhm.
husband, because likely you're the one
Yeah.
handling it and
And my
making the
husband doesn't
purchases.
like talking about money. He just is quite closed when it comes to that sort of stuff. So he doesn't yeah. And he's got a totally different way of spending money and saving money than me. So you're absolutely right. He should have really asked me,
Yeah.
but he didn't.
Yeah. Or it's like, let's have a collaborative approach. Like, you both
Uh-huh.
are on the mortgage. You both live in the same house.
Uh-huh.
This is both of your money. Hey, both of you, like, what
Yeah.
are your household expenses?
Uh-huh.
But that's so common, especially like in financial services, working with financial advisors. Like I mentioned, like, most are male. So most of the time when a husband and wife are sitting in the room, all the questions are going to the husband. And because they speak a similar language, and it's like, well, money is the man's job. So let me speak with the man, and we'll just ignore the woman in the room, who can probably answer a lot of the questions about, like I said, spending, household management. So that's super frustrating. When it comes to like the messaging that we hear about money, or the way we think about money, men and women think about money very differently. So men think about money in terms of performance, the rate of return, how's it doing? So if you hear men talk about money, it's always like, yeah, I picked this stock and it did great and I made X amount off of it and blah, blah, blah. Women think about money in what it can do for me. What can my money do for me? Is it going to help me achieve my goals? And so if you're sitting down with a financial advisor, their attention right away is going to go to the man, because generally speaking, they speak the same language. And you're going to, and if there's never a goal conversation, or if it's never translated into your language, you're going to leave the meeting going, I have no idea what just happened. I clearly am terrible with money, because I didn't understand anything that they were talking about. And that's it. And that's how women think. when that's incorrect. They just weren't speaking your language, which is not your fault. That's like sitting in a room where two people are speaking French and you speak English and you think like, well, I'm an idiot. Like, no, you're like, they literally weren't. Of course I didn't understand what they were saying. They don't speak my language.
Yeah.
Money's the
Cause
same way.
it causes a lot of arguments as well, because like when I'm talking to Ian about money, he just doesn't understand like the way I think about it, and I don't really understand the way he thinks about it. And then when I say that I've got different ideas to him, he thinks that's a criticism, and it isn't. It's just like, this is the way I think about it, and I need you to know that that's how I think about it. I understand how you think about it, but this is how I think about it. Yeah, it
Yeah,
does cause a lot of conflict.
it does. It does. Because money, one, we don't talk about money. We're not raised to talk about money. It's taboo. It's not ladylike. It's improper, all of that stuff. And for some reason, we think talking about money, like with our friends, our family, or whatever, means sharing how much money I make, how much debt I'm in, how much I have saved, how much is in my investments, all of this like personal information. When it's like such a small part of talking about money. I talk about money all day long. My podcast is called Everyone's Talking Money. Um, I, so I talk about money all day long. No one knows how much money I make or how much I've saved or how much I don't have saved or how much is in my, no one knows anything about that because that's such a small part of the conversation. But we think, well, if we talk about money, we're giving out all this personal information. And you shared your story, which is awesome, about this is what I think about money, and there's never enough, and your first money story. And I wonder if you were to ask your husband the same questions, what his answers would be.
Probably
Because
even
that
more than
even
me.
more.
He's even more restrictive with money than I am.
Yep. Yeah. So it's very rare that a couple, both partners, male, female, 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 male, male, are ever on the same page when it comes to money, how they think about money. So it's never like, yep, we think the same exact way. We have the same money personality, right? It never happens. So you need to understand where that person is coming from and why they're coming
Yeah.
from there. So if your husband is even more restrictive, it's like, okay, well, tell me what it was like growing up in your household with money when it came to
Yeah.
money.
I think it works for the business because it, like, I think, right, how can we grow the business so that we can buy what we need? Whereas he goes, right, what costs can we cut to save money?
Yes.
Which
Yes.
works because we have to think of both, but
Right, right, right. So there is a yin and a yang to it. But having like those conversations with your spouse or partner will help identify. And here's the beautiful thing. Both of you aren't wrong. So both of you are right. You're both right
mm-hmm,
because it's your experience,
mm-hmm.
right? It's who you are. So now you need to use that info in order to create compromise because you both are right. So yeah, you can spend money in the business to make money. Yeah, there are ways to cut. Like you're both right. But because we don't talk about money and we just live in a vacuum and our thoughts swirl around, we then believe our way is the only way. And that's inaccurate. That's where the compromise needs to come in. So okay, great. Let's look at our expenses. What is this, a need or is this a want? Well, I think this is a want. Well, I think this is a need. Like, okay, well, let me explain to you why I think it's a need. And like, let's split the difference or let's look at another need that maybe could be a want. Like compromising on things, I think is super important because if it's one person's way all the time, then that's going to again create the caged animal effect where we're going to comply for a little bit. And then what's going to happen in, a couple months later, like, all right, screw you. And a fight's going to happen or spending's going to occur. And then the cycle keeps happening over and over and over again. So it's like, if you feel like you're having these conversations with your spouse or partner and it's like the same ones over and over again, and I'm repeating myself over and over, that means it's broken. Like what you're doing is broken if you're having these same conversations. So there needs to be a deeper, like, where is this coming from? Why do we feel this way? And then creating goals that appease both of you, Goal setting's super important because that's tangible. So it's like, okay, well, if your husband says, well, I think we need X amount of dollars in the bank. Great. Let's set that goal and let's work to get it. And then when you get there, like, hey, we're there. Because what would happen is, well, no, we really need more. No, we got there. You said we needed to have X amount and we did it. So now, like, what's the modification? Now what are we going to do? Now what's going to be our focus? Because restricting, saving forever and ever and ever is not the answer. That's not sustainable. That only creates guilt and shame and anger and resentment to your money.
Yeah, I think that's a good strategy. Our strategy really is to have our separate money and then a bills account. That works
Mm-hmm.
most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just then when we want to like spend money on the house or something like that, then that's sometimes where the friction comes. But you can't say a word about me buying stuff because it's my money that I spend. So yeah.
That's right. That's right. So a solution could be, well, let's maybe increase slightly what we're contributing to the joint account and put that to a savings account. So now that's the savings account. So when, a joint expense comes up, that's what we're using for it. And like, let's have a goal. If we want to do something to the house, we need a repair, whatever, it's there. Many couples, I get asked a lot, like, well, what should be what's the best strategy for managing your money? And it's like, well, obviously whatever works for you. And a lot of couples do the separate accounts for each of them and then a joint account. But then I say, have a joint savings account, have individual savings accounts. And then that way, like, if something big comes up that you want to spend money on and your husband thinks that's frivolous, well, I have my savings account and like I'm going to use it because I've been saving and now I'm going to choose to spend my money this way. So that's super helpful. Another question I get is like, well, do we put the same amount of money into the joint accounts? I make more than he does or vice versa. And it's not fair if like we put the same amount of money in because that represents a bigger percentage of his income than mine. So what I say is do a percentage. So whatever percentage, whether it's like 50% of your pay. So 50% of your pay goes into your joint accounts, whether it's the checking, emergency, savings account, whatever. 50% of each of your pays. So yes, the dollar amount's going to be different, but it still has the same impact on you day to day when it comes to your finances.
Yeah, that's a good strategy. I've heard of a lot of people doing that. So what sort of questions, what other kind of questions come up for you when people are asking for your advice?
So some of my like go-tos or some of my basic pieces of advice are to, one, as we talked about, like with the needs, wants, wishes, automate your savings. So have automations. So make sure you're doing things every pay or every month to pay your future self. Don't wait for, well, I'm just going to save whatever's left over. Remove it immediately. When money comes in, remove it immediately, put it to the savings or put it to the debt reduction. So then you know that that's taken care of. And then what's left over, that's what you spend. And that's actually empowering because it's like, I now can spend this. Like I did my obligation. I was a good girl. I saved or I paid down debt. I did what I was supposed to do. Now I can spend what's left over. Cool. And then what happens is like, you don't end up spending it all because it's kind of like once you're given the opportunity, it's like, I don't need to, like, I'm good. I don't need to, or like I have enough. I bought enough. And then you end up having extra money left over and then you can save that or use that to pay down debt. So automation is super important in America. Like saving for retirement is very important as well. We have Social Security, but that is a very small percentage of what people actually need in retirement. So saving for retirement is very important because it's on us to fund our retirement. So it's almost like as soon as you start working, you need to start saving for retirement because if you do it right, you're going to be in retirement longer than you're working for. So we need to save.
Yeah.
So those are like some of my go-tos, but saving for your future self doesn't always mean your retired self. And I think that's a lot of times what we think of. Saving for your future self could also mean a week from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now self as well. So we need to make sure all of ourselves have access to money if and when we need it.
Yeah, that's really good advice. So,
Thank you.
Shari, thank you so much for coming on my podcast. Have you got anything that you want to promote other than your podcast? Where can people find you?
Yeah, the podcast is the best way to find me. Again, it's called Everyone's Talking Money. You can find it anywhere you listen to podcasts, and it has a lot of the, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of the money mindset. I bring on experts. I can just provide different insights and then some actionable tips to pay down debt, how to budget, how to save, just some great tips and tricks when it comes to personal finance as well.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much. I just wanted to take a moment to speak directly to the women listening who might be struggling in silence. So maybe you're living with the fallout of a husband or partner who's suddenly decided he's a woman, leaving you feeling confused, coerced, or even pressured into things you never consented to. Maybe you're a mother with a daughter or a son who now says they're trans, and you're carrying the heartbreak of that loss without anyone around you really understanding. Or maybe you've been cancelled, silenced, or bullied in your workplace, in your family, or even online, and you're left questioning your reality, your confidence, and your sense of self. If any of that sounds familiar, I just want you to know that you're not alone, and you don't have to keep pushing through it on your own strength, because that's exactly why I offer counselling for women. It's a private, safe, and non-judgmental space where you can say the unsayable. And I know how hard it can be to put words to feelings of betrayal, grief, or anger, especially when the world around you just wants you to be quiet. In our sessions, you'll be heard, believed, and supported without judgment. My work is grounded in person-centered counselling, but I also bring in other tools like inner child work, trauma-informed approaches, and relational models to help you uncover what's really going on beneath the surface. Together we'll explore how the past is shaping the present, untangle the dynamics of coercive or narcissistic relationships, and give you space to grieve losses that others might dismiss or deny. The women that I work with often tell me that our sessions give them clarity, strength, and the ability to start making decisions that honour their own needs, sometimes for the first time in years. And so whether you're trying to rebuild after coercion, come to terms with ambiguous loss, or simply reconnect with who you are, therapy can be the place where you start to feel like yourself again. And I offer a free, no obligation consultation so that you can see if working together feels like the right fit. There's no pressure, just a chance to talk about what you need and how I might be able to help. You can find out more at kellyoliverdougall.co.uk. You deserve a space where you are truly heard, and if this speaks to you, I'd be honoured to walk alongside you on your journey of healing and strength.